This is, I think, fourth lecture for biodiversity. The word botanical is now changed to biodiversity. Botanical, the new word is biodiversity. So this lecture is basically my presentation about the biodiversity research towards entrepreneurship and ecotourism. I have already discussed that biodiversity is basically linked to the ecosystem, diversity and ecotourism. So this is a brief introduction of our university, Qaid-e-Azam University, which is a top ranked university, and recently we are at the 350th number in the world and 98th in the Asia and top 50 universities in Islamic world. Pakistan is a beautiful country with rich diversity of ecology, diversity of the science, diversity of the climate and diversity of the community and the diversity of the plants as well and diversity of the wildlife biodiversity. So Pakistan numerical data that includes about 1/3 flora is identified. There are about 6,000 plant species that are identified up till now, but 2/3 flora remains unidentified. So it is the time that the biologists may identify the remaining flora, fauna, diversity and biodiversity and ecosystem diversity in our country. So this is just numerical data about the plant diversity in Pakistan. Here you see that you already know about the biodiversity services, that the biodiversity may provide a number of the services, but I sum up these services in three categories. Number one, to feed the world. Number two, to heal the world, and to energize the world. That the biodiversity, we get the food, we get the medicine, and we get the energy. So these are basically three important basic necessities of the life. Regarding the food security, we are focusing on the diversity of the wild fruits, wild vegetables, and their conservations in different parts of this country. So the biodiversity may provide you the food. At the same time, we are facing a lot of diseases in our community and in Asia and South Asia. So there are diversity of the medicinal plant, diversity of the animals that are used for the cure of the number of the diseases in the form of nutraceutical, pharmaceutical and cosmeceutical products that we obtain from the plants, animals, microbes and insects. And for energy point of view, you know that South Asia, especially Pakistan, India and our neighboring countries of Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, they are facing a very shortage regarding the energy. So we are focusing about the greener energy because we are the agriculture-based country, and annually we are wasting a lot of the solid waste to our ecosystem and environment. So this solid waste basically may harmful to our ecosystem, may harmful to the soil, may harmful to the water. So by using the renewable and alternative energy, we can overcome our energy crisis. First, I will give you the just glimpses of the wild edible food diversity. In Pakistan, there are large number of the wild edible fruits within the Himalaya, Kuenduka, Karakoram and South Asia, but this diversity is never exploited, never explored. So it is also another important job and assignment to the biologists to identify these wild edible fruits that are alternative to their food security. What are the emerging innovation technologies for the food security, food diversity? Because the world is moving to diversify the food. When we were child, we just only focus on our rice, wheat or meat. But now there is a diversity of the functional foods. Some people, they get only dietary compound to fulfill their energy and food requirement. So the wild edible foods, basically there is a great diversity, great innovation, technology that you may identify the functional foods, functional groups in these wild food and wild vegetables, which is a diverse food alternative resources. So I just give you the example here. This is the Berberis asiatica. Berberis asiatica is basically the indigenous species in northern part of this hemisphere, especially the South Asia, Himalaya. Berberis asiatica is basically a rich source of number of vitamins. It's a rich source of vitamin C, and you all are facing a lot of problems due to your size, that is, we are moving from tall to the dwarf. We are also facing a lot of the problems that we are facing a lot of the diseases every day. So the vitamin C is basically natural amino boost. So this is a natural food. You can use it, you energize your body and you refresh and you combat a lot of disease. So the Berberis exotica is one of the important medicinal plant that is found in the northern part of this country as well as in Himalaya. Next step. Another important vegetables, I know someone identified this species as Solanum nigrum, which is commonly known as in South Asia as a mako, kachmar, pot herb. It is used as a pot herb. This is another important rich source of number of the calcium, magnesium and minerals content. So this wild vegetable is also one of the important source of the food for you. We have published our research group as one of the important study about the diversity of wild fruits and wild vegetables in the European region, because Europe is also moving from fast food to the organic food. Likewise, by Pakistani nation and Indian nations, we are moving toward fast food, but the European and the advanced countries are moving toward the organic food. So the title you here see, the bitter is better. Bitter is better means those fruits, those vegetables which are not good in taste like KFC, not good in taste like McDonald's, but these vegetables are bitter, but they are more better for your food, for your health. So this paper was published basically our joint group of, last slide please, a joint group of some botanists and biodiversity experts from Europe, from Asia, from Africa and from Pakistan. So here you see the list of the authors, 2 or 3 authors from the Asian continent, 2 or 3 authors from the Europe and 2 or 3 from the Asia and Middle East. So the joint venture. So now the world is moving toward the consortium type of the research to identify such diversity of the wild vegetables and wild fruits that are useful for your health, that are useful for the food. Next please. Another study we have published about the potential edible wild fruits and alternative food options, especially under the fast climatic changes that we have discussed in last lecture, that the climate may change our food, may change our rate of pattern of the rainfall, may change our ecosystem diversity. So the world is moving toward the climatic changes. So this study was published by one of our research students about the alternative option of the diversity of wild fruits with respect to climatic changes. Next please. We have also contributed some chapter in the food security, biodiversity and the climate nexus. Now the world is moving toward the climate resilient technology, and especially the desert areas in the Middle East and Africa. The peoples, they are scarcity in the water, they are scarcity in the food, so they are moving toward the new foods diversity with respect to the climatic changes. So this book we have contributed some chapters about the sustainable use of the non-timber forest products. So this is another important use of the biodiversity, that we get the gums, we get the resins, non-timber forest products, honeybee, wild fruit, wild vegetables from the biodiversity. So this is another important area for the new research with respect to climatic changes. So these are the some photographs from my research group. We at the same time we are working in the colder deserts, that is the desert that are covered throughout the year with snow. At the same time we are working with the desert where the temperature is higher than the 50 centigrade. So we are basically focusing about the fruits and vegetable diversity in the colder deserts and the hot deserts. So this is another important area because these two extreme areas are more sensitive to the climatic changes. Next please. So this is the seed or gene bank we have developed in our botanical garden, in our laboratory, about the critically endangered wild fruits and wild vegetables. At the same time, we are moving toward the sustainability and the conservation, especially the restoration of those species which are facing a threats about endangeredness, critically endangered. So you have to collect the seeds, germplasms, genes from those wild resources and protect and conserve in your cryopreservation center, tissue culture labs and your seed banks in order to sustain for our upcoming generation. Here you see, this is my student who is basically working about the nutraceutical facts of this wild edible fruit diversity. These are basically diseases we are facing throughout the country, and all these diseases are common in the world. They are common in Pakistan, they are common in Asia. So to combat these diseases, you use the diversity of the medicine plants. this is a bottom-up approach that we will start our research by using the indigenous knowledge. Conservation of indigenous knowledge is very important because the people who are living in the cities, they have lesser knowledge about the people who are living in the rural areas. They are very close to the nature. They observe the nature, observe the biodiversity with their indigenous knowledge. So the indigenous knowledge may provide a basis, may provide a baseline data about the advanced and applied research into the laboratory and industry. So this is a basically approach from bottom up, that we get the knowledge, we get the important knowledge of plant diversity from the local community and transform this knowledge to your biological laboratories, clinical laboratories, chemical laboratories, and then move toward the natural drug discovery development by involving all applied sophisticated instrumentation. So this slide is basically the bottom-up approach. Here you see the 3 steps, that is the ethnopharmacology. Ethnopharmacology is a important branch of medical sciences and the biodiversity, where you get the knowledge about the indigenous medicinal plants by involving the local communities, and then this knowledge you may have to select the important plant species for your developmental pathways, that is the biological screening and chemical screening. And these screening may lead toward the pharmaceutical, that is the natural drug discovery development. So this is the bottom-up approach, that is the community, scientists and industries. So this is a triplet model, that is the communities, that's the rural communities, the scientists, that are you, that is the students and the researchers who did an experiment on these medicinal plants in your laboratory, and then the industries that develop the natural drugs or cosmeceutical products or some other products for this. So this is bottom-up approach. Another study we have published in 2022, that is the how the physical chemistry, how the biochemistry is involved for the ingredients, for the isolation of the active ingredient from the medicinal plant. So this is a joint venture of our research group with the Turkish group about the active isolation of the compound for the natural drug discovery development. And this is one of the important endemic species, and some of the guys who belong to the rural areas in northern Pakistan, you know about the epilepsy disease, skeletal disorders, but this pioneamidite is one of the important drugs that is isolated from pioneamidite, is a useful drug for epilepsy. And so this paper, this medicine is patentized in China with a joint venture of Pakistani scientists and the Chinese Academy of Sciences about the patent drugs from this plant, which is endemic to this region. At the same time, Pakistan and South Asia is facing waterlogging and saline sites. So the waterlogging and salinity are the 2 major threats for biodiversity. So at the time, we are basically documenting those data which are confined to the salt tolerant plants. So this book we have published about the allophatic diversity for the public health. Allophates are those plants which are salt loving, which are saline science loving plants. So this area is neglected with respect to the biodiversity in the world. Now the world is moving toward the desertification, because the biodiversity specialists in the world, they are more focused on deserts and salt affected plants. So this book is basically about the allophatic diversity. One of the species we have just give you the example of Salvadora persica, which is commonly known in India and Pakistan, pilu, जिसकी मिसवाक आप लोग use करते हो, toothbrush that is used. So this plant is one of the important medicinal plant that is used for the oral disease or dental diseases. One of my students in Azara University, he has completed a PhD about the medicinal plant used for the toothaches and oral disease. So this is because this is a extensive cutting of this tree, extensive cutting because of toothbrush and miswak, and so this important plant also need the conservation strategy. Here you see it is the herbals of Asia. What are the herbals? जब कोई नेचुरलाइज स्पीशीज कंट्रोल कंडीशन में होती है, आप बोटेनिकल गार्डन में होती है या आपके डोमेस्टिकेटेड फॉर्म में होती है, और उसके सीड, जीन, पॉलन डिस्पर्स होके वाइड में चले और वहां इन्वेड कर जाए, दैट इज कॉल्ड एज नेचुरलाइज। अर्बल्स वो होते हैं, अर्ब वो पौधा होता है जिसमें सॉफ्ट स्टेम होता है, रूट्स। अर्बल्स इज आवर मेन टर्म दैट इज यूज्ड फॉर बोटेनिकल्स, that include plants, that include shrubs, that include trees. Herbals are different from herbs. Herbals mean including herbaceous plant, including shrubby plant, including tree. Any plant with a botanical origin is called as herbals. Okay, so herbals of Asia mean diversity of the botanicals, diversity of the plants in Asia that are especially medicinal, that are used for the diseases sometimes. But there is no meaning that only the herbals are used for medicine. Herbals may be used for food, may be used for energy, may be used for non-timber, so many uses of the herbal. Herbals are botanicals, are the plants. While herb is a plant that is short stem, no wood formation, might be annual, might be perennial, might be annual. So this book is basically the herbals of Asia that about document the plant diversity of Asia for different diseases. So this is another important plant that is the Virginia ciliata. You know about this species which is endemic, which is indigenous to Pakistan.
Yes, sir.
But at the same time, आपको पता है कि इसका जो habitat होता है, आपको मैंने बताया था कि when there is a destruction of habitat, fragmentation of habitat, then the species may face the problems of the threats. So this is basically rocks loving species. ये rocks के साथ attachment होती है और जब rocks हम fragmentize कर देते हैं, तोड़ देते हैं, roads बना देते हैं, agriculture extensions हो जाती है, तो this species facing the threats. So this is a very sensitive species. When you broken the rocks, you destroy the soils, then this species become disappear. Before I think 10 to 15 years back, this species are very abundant in Ayubia National Park, abundant in Sawat, abundant in Himalaya, but now the specimens are going to reduce or declines due to the habitat destruction. So this is the important species that is facing the conservation. Basically, it is the need of the time to conserve the species. We have published a study about the joint venture of Pakistan and CIB for the conservation and medicinal application and pharmacology and comprehensive review about this important plant from Himalaya. What is type of conservation at botanical garden? When we have to conserve the plants in botanical garden, what we call it is an in situ or ex situ. When the species they brought from the natural habitat to control conditions, either botanical gardens, tissue banks, seed banks, gene bank, your museum, your farmland, that is called as ex situ conservation. You know, while the in situ conservation is the conservation of the plants, protection of the plant in their natural habitat, that is called as in situ conservation. So the botanical garden may play an important role for conservation of indigenous, for conservation of endangered, for conservation of critically endangered species in the botanical garden. So this is the ex situ type of conservation. Another important area in biodiversity. Now the biodiversity is not a very simple biodiversity is now moving toward the vision of the green energy. That I already informed you that we get a lot of resources from biodiversity. So green energy we get from the biodiversity because there is a rich diversity of the non-edible oil seeds throughout the world. So the non-edible oil seeds are important alternative energy resources for energy consumption. Next please. These are the research areas basically involved during the energy production, that is cultivation, collections, and then production, and then application. But keep in mind, when you use any resource from any ecosystem, you must make the sustainable use. That is the SDGs, Scope 15. What is Scope 15, Akila? COP 15. आता COP का मतलब होता है कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑफ पार्टीज, 15th का मतलब होता है कि जो लास्ट बायोडाइवर्सिटी जो कन्वेंशन ऑन बायोलॉजिकल डाइवर्सिटी जो लास्ट मीटिंग थी CBD, उसमें COP15 को अडॉप्ट किया गया है जिसमें 150 कंट्रीज दे आर सिग्नेटरी. COP15 SDGs का मतलब ये है कि आपने सस्टेनेबल यूज ऑफ बायोडाइवर्सिटी को इंश्योर करना है रिगार्डिंग 4 चीजें मैंने बताई थी, CBD, SDGs, MDGs और CDMs. What is the concept of MDGs?
सर इनका ये टारगेट था कि एनवायरनमेंट को क्लीन करेंगे. सेट टारगेट फॉर
ये MDGs नहीं होता है, वो CDM होता है. CDM का मतलब होता है clean development mechanism. When you reduce the carbon CO2 into the atmosphere, you improve improve the oxygen by planting the trees. This is called as CDM. While the MDG is concept is that Millennium Development Goal for 1 millennium, for 10 years, we have developed the set of targets. For example, 2010 से 2020, 2020 से 2030, 2030 से 2040 हम कोई टारगेट डेवलप करते हैं कि हमने सस्टेनेबल यूज करना है, हमने कंजर्वेशन करनी है, हमने एनवायरनमेंट को प्रोटेक्ट करना है, सॉइल को प्रोटेक्ट करना है, हमने कंजर्वेशन करनी है. दैट इज कॉल्ड एज मिलेनियम डेवलपमेंट गोल्स. और मिलेनियम डेवलपमेंट गोल्स में फिर एसडीजीज उसका सब सेक्शन है, और एसडीजीज में को15 उसका मेन सेक्शन है कि जिसमें हम को15 को अडॉप्ट करेंगे. These are basically the challenges, and these are challenges why we are moving towards greener energy. Basically, increasing demand of energy, your population is increasing, rates are too much increasing. So these are basically energy import. We mostly depend upon the energy import from other countries. So we must focus on the indigenous resources with respect to the solid waste, with respect to non-edible oilseeds, with respect to the algal biodiversity, to produce the local or indigenous energy from our resources. Next, please. These are also important challenges, that is the depletion of the natural resources, fossil fuels, global warming, supply chain mechanism. We are facing a lot of problems. We are facing a lot of high prices of petrol. This is we have developed a new technology for the sustainable use of the indigenous non-edible oilseed for the biofuels. We are basically focusing upon this technology. So there are different technologies that are involved for the innovation technology. So this study published in 2023 by one of my students. She is working on the non-edible oilseed diversity in this region for the biofuel production. Next. So this is a green technology. Green technology क्या होती है? आप इको-फ्रेंडली एनवायरमेंटल टेक्नोलॉजी डेवलप करते हैं जिससे आपकी बायोडाइवर्सिटी भी इफेक्ट ना हो. कोई इंडस्ट्री लगाए तो उसको सॉलिड वेस्ट और बायोडाइवर्सिटी को इफेक्ट ना करे. So these are the indigenous technologies basically for the production of the green energy. Another paper, I just give you this. This is very important for biodiversity, waste management. When your environment is clean, that is called as the CDMs. When your soil is clean, then you convert this waste to the useful things, useful products. So this study about the conversion of the waste seed oil. Waste seed oil means every year seeds drop on the soil, they become waste. They are poisonous, they are toxic to the other species. So just to collect the seeds, to pick the seeds and convert those waste and toxic seeds to the useful product, that is the bioeconomy, that is the bioenergy. So this study is basically solid waste management, which is also important conservation strategy for the biodiversity. That is called as circular economy. This paper is also published by one of my PhD student, Rosina, about the waste management to clean the environment. So this is just I add up this slide. Senses of the green nanocatalysts. Green nanocatalysts, they are eco-friendly. अगर आप chemical catalyst use करोगे तो they are toxic or hazardous to the biodiversity, hazardous to the soil. But when you use the plant-based green nanocatalyst, so this is the eco-friendly approach. So the study published green nanotechnology for the conversion of these waste oil to the biofuels. So this is our basic steps for production of the biofuels. This is the steps in nanoparticles, especially the green nanoparticles. देख सकते हैं the color shell. They are eco-friendly. They are not toxic to you. They are not toxic to the environment. They are not toxic to the organisms. So this is the waste management. Cleaner and greener fuels is that fuels that did not emit the hazardous emission. ये जो आप fossil fuels use करते हो उसमें CO2, NO2, a lot of hazardous gases are emitted and they become global warming. They cause the greenhouse effect. But by using the membrane reactor technology, there is no emission of these gases. So this is the eco-friendly approach in order to conserve your biodiversity. Another study published by my student Dr. Mamoona about the production of the non-edible oil seeds from waste seed, from weeds. Weeds mean they are basically threats to the other indigenous trees. So they convert the weed seed oils to the biofuel. So this study is published in a very important journals in the world, that is the Sustainable Renewable Energy about 20 impact factor. So this is the indigenous tree. So this indigenous tree may be cultivated in the urban areas. Urban areas mean cities. Some mobile में आपको diversity of the trees, diversity of the plants, marginalized. तो आप सिर्फ आप नोट कीजिएगा कि व्हेन यू एंटर टू द रावलपिंडी जस्ट क्रॉस द फैजाबाद एकदम आपको हीट महसूस होगी, बट व्हेन यू एंटर टू इस्लामाबाद बाय क्रॉसिंग द फैजाबाद यू फील अ कोल्डनेस. दिस इज बिकॉज ऑफ richness of the diversity. तो ये जो इंडिजिनस ट्री है सुखचैन, ये इस्लामाबाद के हर रोड पर लगा हुआ है, जहाँ जहाँ रोड जा रही है ट्री लगा हुआ है. दिस इज कॉल्ड बिलियन ट्री सुनामी. बिलियन ट्री सुनामी मींस कि बहुत ज्यादा इसकी कल्टीवेशन है. इंडिजिनस ट्री, नॉट एलोपैथिक, नॉट इन्वेसिव. सो by adopting the billion tree tsunami concept, basically you are going to improve your environment. You clean your environment, you protect your environment, because these trees, they provide the homes, habitat to the birds, insects, mammals, so many things. But पिंडी में आप देखेंगे तो that is facing a lot of problems. उसमें environmental issues भी होंगे, एलर्जी भी ज़्यादा लोगों की होगी, बहुत सारी बीमारियां भी होंगी. तो biodiversity provide you a clean and healthy environment. So these are the seeds, that's the indigenous trees, and these are the another species. तो डल्ला टूना के बहुत सारे दरख्त आपको नजर आएंगे फूड स्ट्रीट जब आप जाओगे, ठीक है. और वो ऐसे दरख्त नहीं, छोटे छोटे बहुत बड़े बड़े ट्रंक्स हैं उनके. आई माइट बी वो 100 years old हो या, ठीक है. और एक दरख्त पूरे उस एरिया को कवर किए हुए होता है. तो दिस इज द बायोडाइवर्सिटी दैट कवर होल ऑफ द एरिया. और नीचे बहुत बड़ी बिल्डिंग्स भी हैं, तो बिल्डिंग्स का जो एनवायरनमेंट, जो टेम्परेचर राइज होता है, जो वहाँ की पोल्यूशन बाहर आती है, उसको ये कूल करता है. अनदर इंपॉर्टेंट वाइल्ड स्पीशीज दैट इज डायोस्पायरोस. तो ये ब्राउन वाइल्ड स्पीशीज में, लेकिन जो इसकी डायोस्पायरोस, वो जो कल्टीवेटेड फ्रूट है जो कि स्वाद फैरन होता है, जिसको हम परसिमोन्स या जैपनीज फ्रूट कहते हैं, वो ऑरेंज कलर होता है. और रिच सोर्स ऑफ विटामिन है और कंटेंट्स है और मिनरल्स है, आपकी स्किन को अच्छा करता है. दिस इज अ वाइल्ड स्पीशीज. सो दिस इज अ इंडिजिनस टू this region. Yes, after Baharman said lesser Himalaya, so this is also indigenous. ये उसके seeds हैं. So that is a important medicine plant used for the infectious diseases. और इसके जो seeds हैं, they are the rich source of the oil. So this source of oil is used as a natural product that is used for the bioenergy. Next. कभी नाम सुनो. ये सारे बायो प्रोडक्ट हैं बायोडाइवर्सिटी के. कॉमन कॉन्फ्रेंस में करते हैं, उस तरह आपको हाथ तक नहीं लगाता है. तो यू आर अ मीट ईटिंग नेशन, ठीक है. जब मीट ईटिंग नेशन होगा तो यू आर द मेजर थ्रेट्स टू द बायोडाइवर्सिटी. क्या कैटल्स को, लाइफ स्टॉक को खा जाएंगे. और अगर आप 10 to 15 years बैक जाते हैं तो हमारे पास हर तरफ हमें गोट्स, शीप्स, लाइफ स्टॉक ज्यादा, अब कम से कम होता जा रहा है. मीट सस्ता होता था क्योंकि डाइवर्सिटी ज्यादा थी. अब मीट महंगा हो गया कि डाइवर्सिटी कम हो गई, बिकॉज यू आर अ थ्रेट. You are a meat eater. How to improve the meat and milk? You feed the livestock by the cattle feed. So the biodiversity may provide you only food, not you. They provide a feed to your livestock in order to improve the milk and meat production. So the biodiversity is also providing you this service to improve your eating requirement. Okay? The scene is also. So these are byproducts that are obtained as a next. ये different analytical techniques हैं for the analysis of different, ये जो हम biofuels बनाते हैं या जो भी करते हैं, ये सारी चीजें आपको पता होंगी. XID किसके abbreviation है? Green child.
X-ray diffraction.
अच्छा. उससे आगे SEM आप बताओ. इसको मैं पूछ रहा हूँ. SEM what do you mean SEM? अच्छा, ठीक है. नैनो मटेरियल. व्हाट इज नैनो मटेरियल?
सर वो पार्टिकल जिनका साइज 10 से 100 नैनोमीटर के दरमियान होता है, वो नैनो पार्टिकल.
मैंने कहा वो आंख से नजर आता है नैनो मटेरियल. अच्छा, माइक्रोस्कोप
नहीं आते हैं सर, नहीं नैनो पार्टिकल्स नजर आते हैं.
अच्छा, नैनो मटेरियल
मतलब वो जब एग्रीगेट फॉर्म में होते हैं.
एग्रीगेट नहीं, मैं पार्टिकल की बात कर रहा हूं, पार्टिकल्स की बात कर रहा हूं. तो उसके लिए फिर ऐसी यूज होती है, ठीक है. तो नैनो टेक्नोलॉजी इज आल्सो अनदर इंपॉर्टेंट ब्रेक थ्रू इन बायोडाइवर्सिटी, ठीक है. अब आप लोग कहते थे कि फिजिक्स वाले नैनो मटेरियल पर काम कर रहे हैं, केमिस्ट्री वाले नैनो पार्टिकल, नैनो केमिकल्स पर काम कर रहे हैं. तो यू आर द बायोलॉजिस्ट, यू मस्ट फोकस अबाउट नैनो टेक्नोलॉजी इन बायोडाइवर्सिटी. अब आपको पता है कि इंटरडिसिप्लिनरी साइंसेस का दौर शुरू हो गया है. ये नहीं कि आप सिर्फ बॉटनी वाले बॉटनी करते रहेंगे या माइक्रोबायोलॉजी. नाउ यू हैव टू लिंक योर फील्ड टू द अदर फील्ड. प्लांट डाइवर्सिटी की एनालिसिस किए गए नेचुरल प्रोडक्ट्स से, ठीक है, ये जो आपको ग्रीन, रेड, ब्लू कलर नजर है, दे आर द नेचुरल प्रोडक्ट एक्टिव इन कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट्स इन द मेडिसिनल प्लांट। ये जो वो है ना ग्रीनिश कलर, दे रिप्रेजेंट द फ्लेवोनॉइड, ब्लू इट रिप्रेजेंट द फिनोलिक्स, रेडिश रिप्रेजेंट द चार्कोन्स। ठीक है, तो ये सारे एक्सट्रैक्ट किए जाते हैं प्लांट से, फिर इनसे एक्टिव ग्रुप डिटरमिन किए जाते हैं, देन दे मूव टुवर्ड द ड्रग डिस्कवरी, दैट इज द नेचुरल मेडिसिन। और टीएलसी क्या होता है? ग्रीन रेन्यूएबल बायोफ्यूल्स। नेक्स्ट, ये कभी आपने सुना हो कि हाउ मैथमेटिक्स एंड स्टैटिस्टिक्स इन्वॉल्वड इन द बायोडाइवर्सिटी? शकील आप थोड़ा सा बताएंगे।
सर, जो बायोस्टैटिस्टिक्स है
हाँ।
उसमें हम जो बायोलॉजिकल हमारा जो रिसर्च होता है उसमें हम स्टैटिस्टिक्स अप्लाई करते हैं, उसमें कुछ एनालिसिस होती है।
आजकल सारी दुनिया मॉडलिंग कर रही है। Modeling means कि when you generate any data from your research, either you are a student of biology or chemistry, अब आपको जो डेटा जनरेट होता है उसकी ऑप्टिमाइजेशन होती है। ऑप्टिमाइजेशन पर फिर स्टैटिस्टिकल टूल्स अप्लाई होते हैं, मैथमेटिकल मॉडल्स अप्लाई होते हैं, और फिर उससे आपके डेटा सिग्निफिकेंट, नॉन सिग्निफिकेंट, सारी। तो आरएसएम रिस्पांस मेथोडोलॉजी बहुत सारे सॉफ्टवेयर हैं, अनोवा है, जी काइट, टी टेस्ट, सो दीज आर द बेसिकली स्ट्रेटजी। और अभी एक नेचर में पेपर पब्लिश हुआ है 2023 में, अब वो आपने पेपर पढ़ना और डाउनलोड करना है। ठीक है, ब्राजीलियन प्रोफेसर, मैथमेटिक्स का प्रोफेसर है, वो डीएनए फिंगरप्रिंटिंग ऑफ द बायोडाइवर्सिटी ऑफ द एनिमल्स, ये जो मंकीज वगैरह होते हैं ना, जो आपके मंकीज हैं या मैमल्स हैं या प्राइमेट ऑर्डर है, तो उसकी बायोडाइवर्सिटी को कोरिलेट किया है ओल्ड मंकीज के साथ, कि जो आजकल के मंकीज हैं। ठीक है, आजकल के मंकीज तो आप वो सर्कस वगैरह में देखते हो या वो जो घुमा फिर आए होते हैं, लेकिन आज से अगर बैक जाते हैं आप 50 ईयर या 70 ईयर्स, तो वो मंकीज कुछ और शक्ल के होंगे। ठीक है, तो उन्होंने डीएनए फिंगरप्रिंटिंग पर रिसर्च किए कि हाउ टू डेवलप एवोल्यूशनरी ट्रेंड्स अमंग द डाइवर्सिटी ऑफ द मंकीज बाय यूजिंग द डीएनए फिंगरप्रिंटिंग। ठीक है, और डीएनए फिंगरप्रिंटिंग को फिर उसने मैथमेटिकल मॉडल अप्लाई किए हैं, फिर उसने एक एवोल्यूशन कंस्ट्रक्ट की है कि ये एवोल्यूशन हो सकती है कि हाउ द मंकीज इवॉल्व, जिस तरह हम इवॉल्व हुए हैं। आज से सदियों पहले जो इंसान था बहुत लंबा था, साइज का कम होता गया। वो बंदा प्रोफेसर जिसने ये पेपर नेचर में लिखा, ही इज अ मैथमेटिशियन। अब आपको काम हमारा है, बायोलॉजिस्ट का है, बायोडाइवर्सिटी वालों का है, वो अब मैथमेटिकल मॉडलिंग वाले लोग बायोडाइवर्सिटी पर काम कर रहे हैं। एनिमल्स की बायोडाइवर्सिटी, फिश की, मैमल्स की, बर्ड्स की, रेप्टाइल्स की, चिंपैंजीज की, पौधों को चलो थोड़ा बहुत हम लोग करते हैं, कोई जीनोमिक्स कर रहा होगा, केमिस्ट्री कर रहा होगा, बट एनिमल्स की जो मॉडलिंग कर रहे हैं ज्यादा मैथमेटिकल लोग हैं, स्टैटिस्टिकल लोग हैं। तो स्टैटिस्टिक्स एंड मैथमेटिक्स दैट इज कॉल्ड एज इंपॉर्टेंट टूल्स फॉर योर बायोलॉजी। तो एलजी की स्टडी को क्या कहते हैं? और फंगाई की स्टडी को, ठीक है, और लाइकेंस की स्टडी को क्या कहते हैं? और इसके अलावा ब्रायोफाइट की स्टडी को, और टीरोफाइट की स्टडी को। So these are all the diverse fields of the biodiversity. Either phycology, mycology, bryology, botany, zoology, these are the fields. So the elder biodiversity is an important source for the green energy. We have published a study with the microbial biodiversity. और ये fermentations के थ्रू microbes involved, microbial diversity की गई है. So the interdisciplinary science of microbiologist and botanist. अब आपको जी माइक्रो और बॉटनी का क्या रोल है? ये बड़ा रोल है, ठीक है। सो दिस इज द इंटरडिसिप्लिनरी साइंस दैट माइक्रोबियल डाइवर्सिटी यूज फॉर द बायोएथेनॉल या बायोफ्यूल प्रोडक्शन और वेस्ट प्रोडक्ट। ये हमने एक टेक्स्ट बुक पब्लिश की है और टाइटल क्या है? ये बॉटनी को पढ़ाई जाती है। कभी आपने बॉटनी में बीएस लेवल पर, एमएस या पीएचडी लेवल पर ये कोर्स में पढ़ी हो?
नो सर।
जितनी भी यूनिवर्सिटी टेक्नोलॉजी या इंजीनियरिंग यूनिवर्सिटीज हैं वहाँ ये बुक पढ़ाई जाती है, टेक्स्ट बुक एट द बीएस एंड एमएस लेवल, ठीक है। उनका एक कोर्स है बायो एनर्जी एंड सर्कुलर इकोनॉमी, ग्रीन एनर्जी, तो उसकी ये टेक्स्ट बुक है। तो हम इंटरडिसिप्लिनरी साइंस है कि जो बॉटनिस्ट हैं दे प्रोवाइड सर्विसेज टू द इंजीनियर्स और इंजीनियर्स दे प्रोवाइड सर्विसेज टू यू। सो दिस इज अ बायोडाइवर्सिटी बुक है, नॉन एग्रीकल्चरल सीड्स की टेक्नोलॉजीज कैसे होती हैं। सो दिस इज टेक्स्ट बुक। इकोनॉमिक्स इफेक्ट ऑफ द बायोफ्यूल प्रोडक्शन। आप ये बुक जो है इकोनॉमिक्स में पढ़ेंगे तो इकोनॉमेट्री एक होता है इकोनॉमिक्स में, तो ये इकोनॉमिक्स पर पढ़ाते हैं कि आप फ्यूल्स की प्राइसेस को कैसे एडजस्ट करते हैं। सो दिस इज अ बुक रिटन बाय द बॉटनिस्ट। साइड दैट हु बिलोंग टू गिलगित-बल्तिस्तान? So this is one of the peakest spots in the world. यहाँ की जो लेक्स हैं, डोसाई लेक्स जो है ऊपर, ये पूरी वर्ल्ड की वो वेटलैंड बायोडाइवर्सिटी जो पूरी दुनिया में कहीं टिम्बर लाइंस है. तो दिस एरिया डिमांड्स योर एक्सटेंसिव रिसर्च, आइदर बर्ड्स की डाइवर्सिटी है, प्लांट्स की है, सेजेस की है, ग्रासेस की है. सो दिस इज अ इम्पोर्टेंट आर्ट्स पार्ट विद रिस्पेक्ट टू बायोडाइवर्सिटी. We have published a study from this hotspot about the conservation of the indigenous knowledge of those areas. The subalpine biodiversity regions. These are basically those regions which are below 15,000 meter. That include Galyar, that include Gilgit-Baltistan, lower, that includes Kahan, Naran. So this area is also one of the important area with respect to the moist temperate biodiversity of gymnosperms. So gymnosperm diversity is also important area with respect to the biodiversity. One of my students completed a PhD from Australia on the gymnobiodiversity, gymnosperm biodiversity, that is Dr. Rais. He completed an MPhil under my supervision, then he completed a PhD, now he is the scientific officer in the herbarium of NARC. So he did so this area is also important area with respect to the conservation. Why do we need this conservation? Because extensive cutting of these temperate forest, that is the देवदार का नाम सुना होगा, जो लकड़ी होती है, केल का नाम सुना होगा, Pinus girardiana, Pinus roxburghii, venetiana. So there is extensive deforestation, cutting. So it is a time to sustainably cultivate these trees for the restoration of those biodiversity hotspots. Next please. We have published a study about the conservation of the indigenous knowledge of these hotspots in the upper Chitral, that is Garam Chashma naam sune honge. So this paper is about how to correlate the indigenous knowledge for conservation of the local communities, that is called as in situ conservation. So this study is about the in situ conservation of the biodiversity at the upper Chitral. Next please. Pakistan hosted the biggest glacier in the world. आपको पता है कि second we are hosted the second peak, that is C2. अच्छा K2 है, नांगा पर्वत है, बहुत सारी है, चलास है. So we are the basically those countries with a glacier biodiversity. So this area is also important with respect to the sedges, grasses, and birds and mammals of this region. Moist temperate biodiversity in Kalam. 2022, Kalam faces the biggest threats, that is the floods. So this area also demands extensive research for conservation of the trees, conservation of the species. So this is another important arts part of the biodiversity. Moist temperate biodiversity of Siripai Gahan. Okay? Siripai is the place in the Gahan Naran. This area is important with respect to the endemic species. So this is another important area for conservation of the endemic biodiversity of this region. We have a study about the northern areas of wild animal food and savanna. You hear about the Sartland biodiversity. Already we discussed about the biodiversity in Punjab. Punjab is facing a biggest threats. There is the waterlogged and saline area, especially Shukrikur-Manjur area that start from Jhelum up to the South Punjab. That is the area under salt soils, waterlogged, saline soils. So this is important area. And you know, अब आप visit करेंगे तो इससे thick vegetation नजर नहीं आएगी. So it is a time to conserve this biodiversity. Desert biodiversity. This is another important area for Pakistan and South Asia that is neglected site. So documentation, conservation of the biodiversity is important in the desert area. Takkar Wildlife National Park in Sindh, we are basically working on this area for the conservation of the indigenous plants of that park. Next. Plants for human. We have contributed chapter to this book about the desert biodiversity. Next. Xeric flora. Xeric flora is those flora which are adapted to the very harsh condition. So harsh conditions, अगर आप उन areas को maintain करते हैं, so this area is important for conservation of the biodiversity. Next. We have studied the deserts of biodiversity in Juniper. Junipers are the important forest sectors in Pakistan. They are the home for the number of the endemic species, and this is the range that is trans-border range of Balochistan and Iran. So this area is also important area with respect to the junipers forest conservation. There is extensive cutting, deforestation, climate changes. So the juniper must be, especially from your Job area at the DI Khan. This is a very important range for the biodiversity. Next. These are the different views of the junipers in Balochistan. We have just published a study about the rare endemic species of Astragalus. One of my students completed his MPhil on the endemic Astragalus. So Astragalus is facing a threat in this area. So we have conserved the species with respect to documentation. Documentation is also one of the important area for conservation and preservation of the knowledge for the policy makers. Next. Honey-bee flora is also important area for biodiversity. To study the behavior of the honeybee. Next. तो इस पर भी आपने रिसर्च करनी, खासकर जो इकोलॉजिस्ट हैं, एंटोमोलॉजी और बिहेवियर इकोलॉजी, दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट विद रिस्पेक्ट टू दिस स्टडी. honeybee also protection, entomologists इस पर काम करें, but our focus is to conserve the bee flora. अगर आप bee flora conserve करेंगे तो honey automatically conserve हो जाएगी, क्योंकि उनके habitat उनका food and nectar. ये लेडी ने कंप्लीट किया PhD honeybee conservation पर, honeybee biodiversity conservation पर from KPT, और she completed her PhD about the honeybee conservation project with a joint venture of Turkey and Pakistan. Dr. Nabila, ये पहले एनालिसिस है नी को ऑथेंटिकेट करना सारा. पोलर एटलस हम देख रहे हैं. So this is the new era that world is writing the different floras, flora of Himalaya, flora of. So we are now writing the polar atlas for the world. So this is joint venture of US, Pakistan and European Union. ये सारे उसकी वो next. जहाँ बैठे हुए उसका नाम है हेर्बेरियम ऑफ पाकिस्तान है, ISL, और इट इज़ द ओनली डिजिटल हेर्बेरियम. इसके 31,000 स्पेसिमेन हमने डिजिटाइज किए हुए नेट पर ओपन एक्सेस हेर्बेरियम में. और हमारे कोलैबोरेटर है इसमें कायद-ए-आज़म यूनिवर्सिटी के साथ, सवात यूनिवर्सिटी है, जाम शोर सिंध से, पेशावर से, बलूचिस्तान है, बलू मालाकंड, ये सारे वो हेर्बेरिया जिनको हम लिंक कर रहे हैं कि हम इस डिजिटल फ्लोरा को कंजर्व कर. मैंने आपको बताया कंजर्वेशन प्रिजर्वेशन दो तरीके होते हैं. तो ये जो नॉलेज है दैट इज कॉल्ड एज प्रिजर्वेशन. तो वी आर बेसिकली फोकसिंग अबाउट दी ओपन एक्सेस हेर्बेरिया. तो या हर कोई इसको एक्सेस कर सकता है. ओपन एक्सेस हेर्बेरिया आपने ओपन करना है, वहाँ ISL देखना है, और आपको सारे स्पेसिमेन की इंफॉर्मेशन जो मालूम है. तो यू हैव टू गेट नॉलेज अबाउट द प्लांट्स. जियो लोकेशन पर आजकल हमने काम स्टार्ट किया है कि हम GS मॉडल. ये प्रोफेसर होम, he is a naturalist from Asia and he digitized about 3.5 million specimens. 3.5 million का मतलब होता है 35 लाख स्पेसिमेन, और ये 102 साल इसकी एज है. Still he is working 18 hours in the laboratory, 18 hours in the field. 2010 में इसने एक आइडिया दिया था IUCN को, और उसका टाइटल था, आपको पता है कि बायोडायवर्सिटी का डे किस दिन को सेलिब्रेट किया जाता है? 22 मई को. तो 2010 का जो थीम था बायोडायवर्सिटी डे का 2010 में, वो था बायोडायवर्सिटी इज आवर लाइफ. तो ये उस बंदे के पीछे थीम था, ये प्रोफेसर होम था, और उन्होंने कहा था बायोडायवर्सिटी आवर लाइफ, अगर हमारी बायोडायवर्सिटी नहीं होगी तो हम नहीं होंगे. तो 102 years old and he is working, and you are a very young baby, just under 25 years or below 20. इसी तरह हो या ऊपर हो. ये यूरोपियन यूनियन के साथ हमने भी MOU साइन किया है, जिसमें हम जो हमारा ये जो एशियाटिक फ्लोरा है इसको हम जाके कंजर्वेशन की तरफ मूव कर रहे हैं. तो वी आर बेसिकली सो दिस जस्ट रैंकिंग. अभी जो लोग काम करते हैं खुद लोग ऊपर आ जाते हैं. ये 2023-24 की रैंकिंग है. प्लांट साइंसेज में नंबर 1 पोजीशन है पूरे पाकिस्तान में मेरी, और 32 पोजीशन है एशिया में, और 315 पोजीशन है वर्ल्ड में, based on citation, based on papers, based on research productivity. और कायद यूनिवर्सिटी भी 315 पर वर्ल्ड में. तो नेचर वांट्स लव, केयर, रिस्पेक्ट. जितनी आप